It's been 500 days since Hamas dragged 251 men, women, and children into the tunnels of Gaza. 73 remain. But as these Israeli hostages slowly come back home, folks are asking, is this a really bad deal? Well, let's bring in CBN's Billy Hallowell to unpack the details. Billy, how are we doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. What do you think about this deal? It seems like the price couldn't be higher.
When you look at the details of the deal, I mean, this is the sixth wave of this release, right? And you see a couple of Israelis being released. This time you have three. And then you look at the Palestinian side and you had 369 being released. I mean, that's 369 people to match up to the three. It's really a wild situation when you think about it. And when you start to dig into the details, okay, well, who are these 369 Palestinians, right?
Hmm.
That's where it becomes a little bit problematic because you have a situation where people were innocently taken, attacked, brutalized, murdered, right? Dragged then over the border into Gaza in these tunnels. These are innocent people, and we're taking three of them, and then we're taking all of these other people who are not innocent. In fact, let me just give you one example here. 36 of these people had been sentenced to life, okay, for involvement in deadly attacks against Israelis. So that's just one group that we could talk about in this over 300. So that doesn't really seem equal, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this harkens back to the 2011 Gilad Shalit deal, which basically was one Israeli for 1,027 prisoners. I think to your point, this isn't one Israeli for one Palestinian, civilian. These are for the most part cold-blooded killers. Among those 1,027 Palestinian prisoners was Yahya Sinwar, who was the mastermind of October 7th. So again, in 2011, one Israeli Gilad Shalit was traded for 1,027 prisoners, including the future mastermind of October 7th. So I've been talking to a lot of my Israeli friends, as you know, Billy. I've been over there a bunch of times, and the shocking thing about this is you're releasing hundreds, now over 1,000 prisoners, a lot of which are serving, like you said, life sentences. Another example is Ahmed Barghouti, who is serving 13 life sentences for his role in helping terrorist attacks during the Second Intifada. These aren't just normal people. But the crazy
Yeah.
part, Billy, is that I've been asking some of my friends, even some of my conservative Israeli friends, and I said, guys, like, you do realize you're basically allowing Hamas to survive. You're ensuring that there will be more terrorist attacks in the future. This is a horrible deal, guys, right? And even my conservative Israeli friends say, yeah, yeah, but their overwhelming emotion is this: man, thank God they're home. One
Wow.
life, one hostage is worth everything. And so even though hundreds of terrorists are going free, they are giddy with with joy that their people, the Jewish people, are coming back home from the dungeons of Hamas. And I have to be honest with you, Billy. I was not expecting that. I was expecting some curmudgeon answer, some can you believe like what we're having to give up? And don't get me wrong, they're all very cognizant of this basically ensuring that more of their friends are going to get killed and more terrorist attacks are going to happen. But they're like, you know what? For this moment, look how much the Jewish people and value life. And not to get too much into the weeds, but I think there is something to be said about you know what? I'm just going to go there. Okay, so I think it's hard for a lot of people watching at home that have never been over there to understand that not everyone in the world has a Western Judeo-Christian worldview. The opening charter of the original kind of Hamas founding document, the opening line said, Israel will exist and continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it. The leaders of Hamas have openly said, we value death like the Jews love life. It is a diametrically opposite viewpoint of the world and of life and death. And so I think it is this weird, beautiful thing that they're willing to trade hundreds of terrorists for 1 to 2 to 3 Israeli hostages. But anyway, I'm going on for a long time, Billy. I just think
No,
it's interesting.
I love what you're I mean, I love what you're saying because I think that it's really easy to critique this, right? And to understand that on paper, this looks bad. I'll throw one more out. There's these three brothers, and this one really stood out to me. The Associated Press had this. These three brothers who were released after more than 22 years in prison for suicide bombings that killed Israelis during, I forget what year it was, but they were in prison for a couple of decades, right? So you have these kinds of people, you're releasing them out into the open again. And we know the danger of that. But to your point, the value of life. I mean, it says a lot about the Israeli people in Israel that they are willing to know that these dangers are being re-released. And let's be honest, I'm sure these people didn't become more docile while they were in prison. I'm sure they were annoyed and angry, and they're leaving potentially even more outraged than they were when they were first arrested. And yet they care so much about their countrymen that they are willing to do that. I mean, there's something beautiful in that, as difficult as it is for us to understand why that would happen. And I think from the beginning, Netanyahu, I mean, everybody was very clear. These hostages, they wanted them home at all costs. And I think the fact that they've come to the table and negotiated in this way shows that that is the real priority. If there's any doubt about
Mhm.
what the priority was, this proves it, does it not?
Well, the problem that a lot of folks would point out is that you are incentivizing, you are almost mandating, "Hey, next time you attack, grab as many Israelis as you can." Because let's put it honest frankly, if Hamas didn't have Israeli hostages, they probably wouldn't exist anymore militarily, logistically. Obviously you can't kill an ideology. Um, and so that's the other side of this where, man, you are really incentivizing people to kidnap people. So I, I can see all sides of this deal where it's like, yeah, we're getting, I mean, me being a little bit more pragmatic and obviously, I'm in California, a little bit removed. I'm looking at this and being like, wow, like this is a horrendous price you were having to pay for these folks.
Well, and you are sending a future message that, hey, if this happens again, this is how we're going to negotiate. And I think that's the other part of the negative on this is once you set new terms like that, that the enemy knows, oh wow, we can get hundreds of our people back if we just get a couple of yours. That's a dangerous precedent to set. Now, if you have some way of thwarting and stopping an event like this from ever happening again, that's one thing. But look, I mean, October 7th was a horrific day. It was something I think most Israelis thought they would never see happen. Of course, you've been over there a million times. You know they're used to these incursions, these things that happen, but not like that. And so it does open up a lot of questions about that for the future. And I do think we have to take a balanced look at it because again, if I'm a hostage negotiator and I'm looking at this, I would say this is bad and we're setting maybe
Mhm.
some bad precedent here.
Well, stage one is supposed to have 33 hostages for 1,000. It's not funny for 1,900 prisoners. That is an egregiously bad deal. But you know what? So far it's held up. And I think obviously here at CBN, we're going to have a lot of coverage about what happened. Does phase two really happen? I think that's the question. Are they really going to go and start withdrawing everything? I don't who am I? I'm not a military strategist. I don't see stage two happening. That just a spectator, someone just watching from the outside. I can't imagine that, especially with Trump's backing, that the Israelis and Netanyahu would allow Hamas to live another day. But I'm surprised that the stage one has lasted this long. So obviously, stay with CBN. We're literally busy. I'm WhatsApping, tons of people in Israel, and obviously, the entire CBN team to bring you people that are in the know. Because we want to be the first to let you know that if the ceasefire holds, if stage two happens, but as of this exact moment, we can, I think, at one time, Billy, say this is a horrible deal, and also thank God they're home.
Yeah, thank God they're home. And we can be praying for them, which I think is the place to leave it. Just calling everybody out there, pray for those who have been released, those who have still not been, that are in captivity. But coming out of this, you need a lot of recovery and a lot of time to process what you've seen and experienced. And I don't want to forget that in the mix of us talking about this.
All right, Billy, I appreciate it, my man.